recorded,
Recording in
and
progress.
anything put in the chat or questions will also be part of the public record. So open forum, does anybody have anything for open forum? I'm not seeing anything. And oh, Tom Clay.
I'm just wondering if we should officially welcome Kristen.
Yes, we should. That is a good thing for open forum. Yes, welcome, Kristen. Is this your first official meeting?
First official meeting, yes.
First
Thank you for letting me sit in before, but it's great to be with you all tonight. Thank you.
First official meeting with us or first official meeting for everything? Because it's already a day and I am surprised they let you go without a meeting yesterday.
Yeah. We'll go easy on you.
It's like okay.
Day 2, right?
Day 2.
Yeah.
Welcome. We wanted to come back next week.
Yeah, exactly. Anything else for open forum? Okay, so we will go to our first agenda item is actually for the select board. So Andrea, I'll turn it over to you for this item.
Thanks, Christina. We have an invoice from Mike Wells for our communications that we need to approve so that he can pay it. So is there a motion to approve?
So
A second?
Second.
And all those in favor, Tom?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
Anita?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Aye. So there you go. Dan, tell him he can pay it.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay. Back to you, Christina.
Thanks, Andrea. Okay, so back to our review of the FY24 budget. We're going to go into general government, and first on the list is the select board. Anybody have any questions on the select board budget? Nope. How about town manager? There were a couple of changes there, if people saw them. Any questions?
May I give a brief overview of the changes, if that's helpful?
Go right ahead. Sure, Kristen, go ahead.
Sure. Thank you so much. And thank you for the warm welcome. Again, Kristen Last, town manager, happy to be here with the group. In reviewing the town manager budget over the past month, I understood that the full salary amount that Jody had in was $230,000. My contract amount came below that. So I wanted to adjust the budget properly for the salary adjustment for fiscal year 24. In doing so and speaking with Dan and some others at town hall, I know there's a $5,000 training budget in the town manager budget for all employees. And I am wondering if it would be possible to allow that to be increased by $5,000, not only to foster some training that I would like to take that I've spoken with the select board members about, but in speaking with some of the staff very briefly this afternoon, there is some need for additional MCPPO training, which is the procurement training through the state, as well as there's other leadership training that I know some of the staff members have been through, and I have been through in the past as well, that I think would be beneficial for some of the staff. Certainly willing to discuss that, as I know there still is a deficit. And also was looking to purchase some additional furniture, but Dan alluded me to the Mass Municipal Modernization Act that allows for budget transfers to occur in May and June. And there would be some allowance in the salary line item for fiscal 23 to do that. So again, I'm happy to answer any questions or provide further explanation and provide and receive any guidance that you may all have, as I know this is just my first budget hearing. So very open to feedback.
Thank you. Anyone have questions for Kristen on those?
I am in training, so anything that improves competencies, let's go.
I think it sounds reasonable to me, so I think we'll let it play out through the budget process, unless anyone else has any other questions with it. Okay, I'm not seeing anything, but thank you for that explanation, Kristen. That sheds a lot of light on the changes. So we'll go on to the Finance Committee budget. Beth?
I actually had a question about the sustainability manager. Is that in the town managers?
So that is a good question, because I would think it would show up under the sort of into the town manager. It probably has its own line item somewhere, but not in the next year's budget.
Dan, would you be able to give an overview, please?
Of course, we did have the request in for 70% of the sustainability coordinator. However, within the budget process, we were not able to fund that portion of the salary. So that's one of the items we still have out there that is still open for consideration when we hear about state aid and everything else, just the final revenues. So that is still a pending request out there, but it's not funded in the current budget.
Do you have anything else, or is that answer
And
your question for me?
Was that still shared with Carlisle? Was that how it was arranged last year, right?
Yep, it was funded
sharing
this year.
that?
Yeah, it was funded through a grant this year. We reached out to Carlisle, and Sue was spending more time in Westford. So we had a 70-30 split budget for next year.
Okay. We will just keep an eye on it then, I guess.
Okay. John?
At one time, we were looking at using ARPA funds for that and then getting a better handle on the scope of the duties of the sustainability coordinator and then looking to fund it maybe next year. At least that was the thought, or at least that was my thought and recommendation. So I was thinking about maybe using ARPA funds. I think there's something in there for that, but I'm not sure.
Dan?
Yes, there is still a pending request out there that the select board hasn't funded yet because we're still going through the budget process, or hasn't been considered yet.
Okay. Okay, does anyone else have anything else on that subject? Hari?
On page 12 of this Westford FY24 budget, are you going to change the name of the town manager?
I will now, Hari. Thank you.
You just caught my random.
Okay, anybody else? All right, let's go on to the finance department.
We have a question in the chat.
Oh. Okay, can we let's let Emily ask her question.
Sure, just gonna.
It's about the sustainability.
Emily, are you there?
Yes, I just saw that the host unmuted me. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Great, thanks. And I appreciate your taking my question. It's a follow-up for Beth, and yes, it is about the sustainability director. As you know, Westford Climate Action has been very active in town meetings, and people have been responding to our recommendations and the resolution that was passed several years ago. And sustainability is a huge priority for the residents of Westford and the voters of Westford. And I personally am very, very disappointed that the wellness coordinator position was fully funded for next year. And the sustainability director is not funded even at the 70%. And I think basically I would propose that it be 100% for Westford, and Carlisle can come up with their own funding for what they want. But this is huge for Westford, and to sort of keep kicking it down the road until we get to town meeting and we have to find the money somewhere on the floor. I mean, both of your committees, I think, are significantly responsible to the residents and voters of Westford. And if we are to have any kind of significant progress in sustainability, this position needs to be funded to do the research, to do the collaboration with other committees and departments, and to do the grant writing that will fund programs and potentially salary for this position in Westford. Please take a stand on this, both committees. I'm kind of appalled that it keeps getting, okay, fine, whatever.
Okay.
And I'm happy to answer any other questions or say anything else, but I can only tell you in the strongest terms that I represent way many more people than can be in this meeting tonight to speak for 100% of this position to be funded in the current budget that you're working on.
Thank you for your input, Emily. personally, I do agree with you. I think at this stage, at least for the finance committee, we haven't gotten to a point where there is money for us to even give input to fund that position. So it has not gotten lost. It's not forgotten. I assume we will be discussing it in subsequent meetings or possibly even later in this meeting. Beth, I'm going to go to you and then John.
I just was wondering if there's been an effort to bring in grants to fund it for another year, or I thought that that was part of the thinking of this position, that it could be kind of a self-sustaining position with grant funding. So has the funding just not been available in the grants, or do we not have the capacity to actively seek those grants?
I'm not sure who could answer that question. I don't know, Dan or Eric.
I think Eric can answer it,
Yeah.
and he has his
Eric?
hand up too.
Perfect.
Hi, everyone. So we have been keeping our eye out for different grant opportunities that are available. I have not seen anything that's come across that we can apply for this specifically, but both Sue and I are keeping our eyes out. The regionalization and efficiency grant that we got last year, we can't reapply for the same thing. So that's not an option.
Thanks, Eric. And John, did you still have a
Well,
question or
yeah,
comment?
just one point there, the job description that we have, and I think the position is correctly called the sustainability coordinator, not director.
Okay. Okay, anybody else? All right, let's move on to, well, let me just, one last call for the finance department. Anything? No. Next is town accountant. The Board of Assessors. Treasurer collector. Heather, go ahead.
Sorry, I just wanted to ask a question, not specifically about the assessors, but I know we had talked about getting some kind of ride share software for sharing vehicles. I just was wondering if we could get an update on that.
Eric, would that be your department?
I'm back again. So we have not fully explored that quite yet. We spoke to the town of Acton, who we thought was going to be implementing this type of program. And we found out that it was actually not explored because the staff did not want to go down that path from what we've been told. But certainly Jody wanted us to continue anyway. So we're trying to keep our eyes out for a different program. Certainly something we'll work with Kristen on to try to explore in the future.
Thank you. So one last call for treasurer collector. Legal services. Human resources. Nope. Town clerk. Not seeing. Permitting department. Nope. Conservation Commission. Planning Board. Zoning Board of Appeals. Town Hall. Public Buildings and Properties Maintenance. I actually have something here. You know what, Dennis, go ahead. You can go first, and then I'll do mine.
Yeah, I believe you're referencing town facilities. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay, so I just wanted an explanation. I saw that there was a pretty interesting little bump in pest management. What sort of infestation are you dealing with that has caused that increase? I'm just interested.
If
So
that's to you.
hi. So we put an RFP out in June to re-up our 3-year pest management contract. This was something Paul Fox did before he left. And when he put out the RFP, he included some buildings in it that were not being serviced by the old contract. So this is a reflection, a little bit of some expanded pest management services in some town buildings that didn't have it before. And also we did have a small infestation that we saw at Town Hall that we were able to mitigate pretty quickly, but it is going to require some ongoing treatments to be done around the building. And there was flying termites that we had.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Heather?
This isn't specifically a question, but when we get into talking about the Main Street admin building, I would like to have a thorough analysis of how much expense it would cost to bring that online. I know when we just talked about that sustainability coordinator, it was probably less, and we can't fit that in the budget. So I just have some concerns with bringing on another big building like that. And I'd like to know specifically what we think it's going to cost us to run it.
Okay. Thanks, Heather. So my question or comment around the public buildings is, I know during the current year's budget, the maintenance was moved from other departments into the public buildings department for certain, mostly town center buildings, like I think the police, fire, I think town hall was moved into your budget, Jeff. I know we've switched town managers, so I just kind of want to make the point of, we had talked about maybe continuing that trend and having your department responsible for buildings and maintenance for more of our buildings, so that we had a professional, and the maintenance was consistent across the buildings. I hope that trend kind of continues. Tom LaFlame actually emailed me this morning. He was at a recent Permanent Town Building Committee meeting, and there was an issue with a bathroom at the Cameron. And he thought it may be a maintenance type of issue. I don't know any details on it, but he sort of mentioned that to me. And I know that the Cameron still, I believe, handles their own maintenance. So it sort of brought up a question to both of us of, maybe there needs to be a shift or some kind of a change, so that those issues don't happen. I don't know if you have any more information on that, or if you can expand on that at all.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm certainly open to any conversations, and I'm always here to help and assist Jennifer with her maintenance needs. We're in constant communication on this sort of stuff. As it relates to the bathroom situation, Eric and I have been working very hard with our OPM and design team to get a bid out for the Cameron HVAC Center. And we in this process, we discovered that there was a bathroom that was not renovated during the 2010 project. And it's came as much to my surprise last week as everyone else's, that they kind of closed the door on it and really hadn't been using it for the past several years. So we've addressed it. We've included it in the scope of what we want to repair in the new project. And I did speak with Jennifer Claro and Chris Mitchell over there to address the immediate cleaning concerns of the bathrooms. So those have since been rectified.
Okay, thanks. So that's going to be included in the Cameron HVAC
bid?
Is that what you're saying?
There's some general construction that has to happen in the bathroom as a result of the HVAC, some duct work that's going to happen. So there is some small amount of construction that'll happen in the bathroom as a result of the HVAC project.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, anybody else have anything? Okay, I'm gonna move on to recreation and culture, land management. Anybody have anything on land management? Nope. Okay, Board of Health. Anyone have questions for the Board of Health, for the Health Department? I have one question for you, Ray. In one of my questions, I asked about the interaction between the Health Department and the Community Wellness Coordinator, because the Wellness Coordinator is actually in a different department, and how that works. And you made a statement that there are some challenges in regard to applying for the same grant funding and program overlap. Could you just expand on that a little bit, and what you think might need to happen so that we can sort of straighten that out?
Sure. So we work very close with Nicole on all kinds of projects and programming, and try to meet regularly. But there are times when lots of grants are out right now for substance abuse, mental health. in which case we do our best to communicate, but we don't see each other all the time. You know, she's busy, we're busy with projects. So there has been some overlap, and we try to avoid that, but that can be some challenges where she's also working on community wellness programming, which is under a different department than the health department.
Okay, thanks. Dennis?
Yeah, I have a question for Ray. There's been an ongoing discussion for some time between myself, the fire department, police department, and the ambulance with regard to, and with Board of Health, with regard to the extent of the opioid issue in Westford. And one of the suggestions that is offered a long time ago was the fact that if you have an issue or a problem, you would like to be able to try to get a gauge on how extensive it is, and how, you know, by tracking it. So I've repeatedly asked for some sort of a metric. I know that you offer in your report a very extensive metric on a whole host of you know, maladies that are affecting people, you know, Lyme disease and everything else. And I realize that you can't get maybe an accurate number per issue about particularly opioid deaths. But I was just wondering if there's some way of at least monitoring how much, for example, how much Narcan you issue every year, how much, I know that we did try to get the police and fire to report how many times they administered it. And they were having difficulties over design issues with the dispatching format that was used. I mean, it's a bureaucratic problem, but I do believe it's very important to be able to monitor what the levels of those of that administration of that Narcan and other is, so you can get an idea of how bad the problem is. And I was just wondering, is anything being done to do that? And I asked that in my questions, and I got some there was some indication that there was some movement forward, but I'd like to get a little bit clear update directly from you.
Sure, absolutely. So quite a few things, actually. Long story short is, for Westford here, 2020, we had 6 overdose-related incidents due to opioid use. Last year, we had 25. That is Mass Department of Public Health specific to Westford. As you saw, that we looked to the fire and police department to see how many times they're administering Narcan. So they just put that report together, which, you know, I attached. Here at the health department, so we are currently working on Narcan rescue kits for every cruiser, fire truck vehicle, and first responder vehicle. So they'll have kits for family. If they're in the field and a family needs a rescue kit, it will have Narcan, fentanyl strips, a bunch of rescue medical supplies in the kit, and those will all be free. And those are paid by grants. So that's currently a program we're working to address the opioids. That's one. Then we are also ordering now lock boxes, which, sorry, I'm in and out here I'm here at the town hall service. But we're ordering naloxone boxes, which will be offered to any business here in Westford that would like to install one. For instance, we're starting out with the businesses along 495, where we see the biggest overdose issue. Working with the police department on that, and that is also paid by a grant. We're working with schools. We actually have our regional community health and wellness coordinator who's offering social emotional training to kindergarten, first grade, second and third graders in the after school program. So lots of things going. Happy to, you know, don't want to hold up any of your time, but there's lots of things we're doing here with the health department and working directly with Nicole on.
So you are now getting reports directly from the fire and the police then, I understand.
We have asked, I know a lot of communities have Trinity, and Trinity puts out a pretty extensive report.
Yeah, right.
We don't have that service. So we're working close with Joe and Mark to see, you know, in the future, what kind of metrics.
Okay, so you're moving forward. That's good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks. Kristen?
Thank you. I just wanted to follow up on the previous question about the wellness coordinator. As that position falls under the town manager's office, I would commit that we would have a closer working relationship with the health department on those grants and understanding that. So definitely committed to doing that and working with those two departments.
Thank you. Ray, I just had a couple of other questions.
Sure.
One, the revolving fund has, roughly an $80,000 balance currently, give or take. What happens with that balance? Can it be spent, or what happens with that?
Sure. So for instance, Monday, a lot of people don't realize we have to lock in our order for flu vaccine for influenza next week. So we have to do it about 7 to 8 months before the season. We have to predict what's going to happen and how many people we need to inoculate. So we look at our metrics each year. I've noticed since being here, we would spend about $50,000. And what's happened is with flu vaccine, we used to get about 20% back for any product we didn't use. Now it's down to 10. So for instance, this year we went down to about 42,000. We inoculate about 1,500 people, residents per year. With COVID, we're just hearing that it's going to be commercialized for the fall. So people will have to come in to get their flu vaccine. They'll have the option to get their COVID vaccine. So we have to pay for that quite ahead, and it runs about $45,000. We pay ahead, and then it takes almost a full year for the state to reimburse us. So you can see how it goes really low and then comes up. Some things we're working on now is the shingles, offering shingles. A lot of residents, we have a waiting list. It's expensive. 2 vaccines, it runs about $700 a person. So we're looking to use some of that funding with shingles right now. And actually this week we're finding out what insurance companies will reimburse for shingles and which ones won't. So that is a program, but I do understand it goes from 100,000, it goes down to 40,000. It depends on what's coming in for reimbursement.
Gotcha. Okay, thanks.
Mhm.
Beth?
I was just wondering if the ending of the COVID emergency at the federal level, if that's having any impact on our programs, the health department.
I guess I would look for more clarification. We are in what would be considered with CDC as post-pandemic. We do have lots of folks that still reach out, especially with this week from school vacation week, between our daycares and some of our programs here. But that certainly does impact our programming here. We're running in person. We offer CPR classes, stop the bleed, things like that. I'm not sure if that's what you mean as far as in person.
I think it was changing the reimbursement too for the COVID vaccination, but maybe that impacts more private insurance and Medicaid and Medicare. So I'm not sure if that would impact our vaccination program.
Yeah, so right now we do receive a nursing administration fee, about $25 per vaccine. It depends on the insurance. There are over 70 different insurances that we see. So that's something our public health nurse does work on. For instance, this week we're just hearing new things about Medicare and Medicaid, not only with shingles, but with COVID. We have not heard yet exactly what's going to take place with the COVID vaccine, other than it will be commercial. It will be about $150 per vaccine for the booster. And we're still waiting. We're waiting from the Department of Public Health to hear. Well, for us in our department, it will be another vaccine that we'll offer the public. We want to make sure everybody has that opportunity. CVS, Walgreens, they immediately get overwhelmed. Our pediatrician's office get overwhelmed. We have close partnerships with them. So we would definitely offer the COVID booster vaccine. And our understanding is it will become seasonal.
And testing, do you still offer COVID testing or?
We
No.
do not offer COVID testing. There's not many places in the state right now, to be honest, that you could go get COVID testing other than a clinic or hospital. But I will say that we have just received 10,000 kits from MEMA here for residents, and we give those out in 4 different places, and those are good till the end of June. Those are free. We have people that come every day, take 10 at a time, whatever they want. There's no limit.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I had one question that sort of came up under the health department, but it's not specifically for you, Ray. It's in relation to vehicles. I had asked for, what maintenance you had done on your vehicles, and I noticed that it looked like one of the vehicles had a oil change and possibly the other one didn't. It was difficult for me to tell, but it sort of sparked a question in my mind as to, do we have a vehicle maintenance either policy or guidelines, or is it up to each department head? Like, how are vehicles being maintained? And then, yeah, Eric, thank you for your hand, because I was assuming that that was more of a question for you.
Yeah, thank you, Christina. So actually, Steve Cronin and I were just discussing this. So we are going to be looking at possibly having all of the, at least the town hall vehicles serviced up at the DPW on a regular schedule. We're just trying to identify a program that we're going to use to track everything. But now that Steve has Kyle Fox on board, we actually hopefully can get going on this. So I'll be following up with him to discuss further.
Okay, great. Thank you. Because I was thinking if it was up to each department head, I'm thinking if I were in that position, beyond like normal oil changes, I would be clueless. So I would hope that that wouldn't be up to me.
Yeah, I think hopefully, I think the idea eventually maybe is to have the police vehicles serviced as well, but that's a lot of vehicles to take on. So I think we're just going to try small baby steps at first.
Great. And that would be our mechanics looking and doing the work?
Correct.
Perfect. Awesome. Okay, that sounds great. Any other questions for the Board of Health? Not seeing anything. I'm going to go to debt service. Not okay, not seeing anything there. So under risk management and unclassified, otherwise unclassified.
Hold on, I got one here.
You got one, Dennis?
Yeah. This is the, we're talking about unclassified or risk management.
Yeah, anything in there, whatever.
So
Anything.
I was looking at, they're talking about the escalation of costs by 2025 going up to 11 million. And I was just wondering, what's the reason behind that? If you can give us a little explanation on it.
Are you talking health insurance, or what's the 11 million?
I think it's workers'
referring
comp.
to? Workers' comp.
Compensation.
Pam or Dan? Dan?
Yeah, so the entire budget for the 945 unclassified, we moved all the active health insurance trusts out of there for now. It's in the 990 budget, but it's going from 10,408 in FY24 to 11,074 in 25, 11,758 as a total into FY26. The largest driver of that is our retirement assessment from Middlesex. We have to pay off the unfunded liability for the retirement pension by 2040, and we're on track to pay that off by 2036. But it is going up, 4 or 5, 6% each year. It's such a high number that's really driving the cost. Our other insurances are going up. We have 7% increases in there based on claims data. Eric and I do have a meeting, and Kristen have a meeting with our insurance broker in the middle of February just to try to lock in those amounts a little bit closer, make sure we're on target. And insurance is one of those costs that just does keep going up, but the main driver here is retirement assessment.
So who actually puts the mandate that you have to have the obligation paid by a certain date? And my last question is: do you have any concern that as you seem as though you're dealing with a sliding scale? Is there any concern that increases will continue so that you won't be able to catch up with it?
We have to keep up with it. This is an assessment that we have to fund, so it's a state mandate that we have to have the pension fully funded.
All right.
Okay. Anything else in any of those categories? Okay, I'm not seeing anything. All right, so let's go to our 8 p.m. agenda item, which is a discussion regarding surplus budget capacity. And Dan, I assume this is you or who?
Sure. So we've been keeping track of any budget changes that we've been making along the way here. We just want to give you a brief update on where we're at with budget capacity. I'm about to touch on some of this during the revenue presentation too, so I'll get a little more into it at that time. I share my screen here. So this is the document that was sent out the other day, yesterday actually, just to rehash the changes that we've done so far. On January 11th, the select board voted to use ARPA funds to pay for the public safety radio upgrade, which freed up $126,880 in the general fund budget. Later the next week, We had a conversation with Denise Pigeon, the superintendent of Neshoba Valley Technical High School, and she had the preliminary estimate for us for the FY24 assessment, which was 32,000 higher than what we had originally counted on. Also, we have the changes that are just new today for Kristen suggested changes to move the town manager salary and lower it to what the actual is for next year. It freed up 10,700. Of course, adding that 5,000 to training for next year. Freed up a total of 100,197 in expenses. Moving down, I'm about to give the street revenue presentation, but I did speak with Kristen earlier today. Our investment income has been doing very well. We've collected 106,000 so far halfway through the year. And speaking with Christine Collins, we feel comfortable moving the projection for next year up from 120,000 to 200,000. Put that in perspective, we only collected 47,000 last year as rates were much lower. So I'll get into that a little bit more. Hotel excise, this was something that we knew was a possibility as well. After doing some calculations, we're not going to receive any more information before a town meeting. We get payments quarterly on September 30th, December 31st, and so on. So, but based on the trend we're seeing, we're comfortable bumping that up another 80,000 as well. On the fees, we've seen the opposite. We're actually, we want to decrease the projection based on the, it's actually the recycling collection that we've seen. We're actually being assessed now rather than collecting fees for it. So we want to lower that to 27.5, which results in an increase in local revenue of 132.5. So total, we have 232,697 budget capacity at this point in time. We're still waiting on state aid, and we're still waiting on the final Neshoba Tech assessment, which is subject.
Okay, thanks, Dan. Anyone have questions on this? Dennis, is your hand still up or do you have a question on?
No.
Okay, Heather? No.
I just have a quick question on the public radios. That's operating, that wasn't in capital?
So that was a capital expense, but the project is ongoing right now. So rather than use bond proceeds to pay for the project, we're going to use ARPA instead. That means we don't have to budget for a debt payment in the future, which
So that's
was
all
in the
the
original
payment
budget.
that's coming out, not the actual, gotcha. Okay,
That's
thank you.
correct, yeah.
That's good.
Okay, anyone have any other questions or comments? Okay. So at some point we'll have to figure out what we're going to do with this money. If there's no other comments or questions at this point, I'm thinking, you know, a little bit later in the budget cycle, once the governor's budget is released, might be the more appropriate time. But Andrea, I'll let you chime in.
I agree with you, Christina. I think that there are still some unknowns out there, including the governor's budget. There are also some unknowns still with the school budget. We still have a $266,000 gap there. We don't know what the governor's budget is going to be. We don't know whether we're going to get assessed, you know, an additional 14%, 5% or whatever, and what that might cost us. And so I think there are still unknowns out there. And so I think the prudent thing is to wait until after March 1st and we get the governor's budget and we've gone through our entire budget so that we know exactly, you know, what funds are out there and what any additional costs we might have that we're going to have to cover. So I think we need to wait till then.
Okay, yeah, I agree. Okay. So let's go on to capital planning. And Dan, you up for this?
Yeah, I got the next two. So
okay.
I'm going to try to keep these brief so you don't have to hear me too much here. Share my screen. All right, so we have our initial capital plan for FY24. Just to give you a brief overview, here are all the people that contributed to the plan this year. You'll notice Mark Koss is not here, who's been here since the inception, and it's quite a different year, but we do miss Mark, but we think we have a good plan here. The process here, we met 7 times starting in September and just ending last January to finish up some unfinished business, to look at all the capital needs that we have through 2025 through 2028 and make sure everything critical is getting funded this year. Of course, we have them come up with recent quotes and bids, and we like to work with all the committees that are listed here just to make sure that they're involved in these. And of course, we always have a great participation from the department heads. They do a very good job organizing their information. If we have basically a different recommendation coming from these boards, we'd have to reconvene with capital and work to make that happen. Our current capital stabilization balance is 510,000 at this point. And we're using numerous sources to fund the plan in front of you, which is 30.6 million. Particularly pay-as-you-go free cash, general fund bonds, which are both excluded and non-excluded, enterprise fund bonds, retained earnings, ARPA funds, CPA funds, and Chapter 90 funds. The 5-year capital requests exceed 59 million this year, and every year since we formed this committee in 2009, it's been over 50 million. So, and moving forward here, this is a new slide this year. This is some capital projects and supplemental appropriations that the select board have approved in FY23. Of course, we just talked about the public safety radio, which is the big one. We had some emergency repairs at Westford Academy for a wastewater plant, which need to be fixed immediately. And same thing with from technology, the 911 requirements that we needed to implement immediately. And the rest are just supplementals due to inflation for several other projects and vehicles we had. Again, here's the request for the 5-year request summary, 59.6 million. And then we're down into the actual recommendations here. So I'm going to go through this somewhat briefly and just give you a high-level interview because it's the first time you're seeing it. We're not suggesting you make a recommendation tonight. That can come at a future meeting, but this is just to introduce you to the projects. I'll zoom in a little bit here. So for technology, we have our normal request. It's the town and school computers and some server and storage replacements. For the fire department, we have the Station 4 A&E, either a renovation or replacement. The Permanent Town Building Committee has requested this funds with the fire department for preliminary design services for this project. For the schools, Jeff Goodwin put together a great capital plan for them. We're going to start with the Stony Brook front entry patio for 95,000. It's in very rough shape right now, and it's all segmented off, and it needs to be replaced. It's over 20 years old at this place, and basically, it's just that the stone used isn't responding well to the winter conditions. Moving down the NAB parking lot and walking path, this is behind NAB school on the outside. Basically, there's significant drainage issues in the rear driveway that attribute to washout and deterioration of the asphalt and the surrounding grade. And the single lane behind the schools also needs to be widened to allow for the traffic pattern during pickup and drop off. We have a wide area mower for the Blanchard School. This is replacing a machine that's 11 years old. It's just scheduled replacement. And we're requesting an electric vehicle for facilities department. Jeff is currently using his own vehicle, and the custodial supervisor is using a repurposed cruiser. So because the custodial supervisor drives more, he would get this electric vehicle and Jeff would use the cruiser. And this is eligible for a $7,500 rebate. Next up is the Boston Road project we all keep hearing about here. This is the general fund non-participating cost. This is basically for items such as right-of-way acquisitions and other miscellaneous items like landscaping. In total, there's 35 properties impacted by this project with construction anticipated in 2024. Next up, we have the expanded town hall parking lot with 550 coming from free cash and 100,000 from stormwater enterprise for the all the stormwater work that needs to be done underneath the parking lot. This will create 34 spots in the town hall, but this still has to go through the planning board process and all that. So it is subject to changes as well. Below that is Stony Brook Bridge Replacement Project for 50,000. Essentially, Mass DOT is doing work on the Stony Brook Bridge right by the railroad overpass. And there's a residence there that won't have access to emergency vehicles at that time. The residents are cooperating with us, but we do need to hire a consultant to help us with the relocation process during that time when that project's underway. The next few The next four are actually vehicles for DPW and Parks and Grounds. They're all past their useful life. We're not thinking they're going to pass inspection next year, and they all have significant corrosion and rot. So these are the four vehicles that we're wanting to pay for through the general fund. Is it four? 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes, that's correct. Okay, 5 actually. It's another pickup down there. Below that is the Abbott Elementary School wastewater treatment plant rehab. We've been redoing all the tanks within town, and Abbott is the next one up. This will be done during the summer months. Go to page 2 here. So department heads did submit applications to the Community Preservation Committee. They have reviewed them all, and they're making the decisions on Tuesday night. Those projects are the design services for the Stony Brook track and athletic courts. They're in pretty rough shape. All the courts are cracked, and the track is actually heaving, becoming a safety issue. We have the construction for the Jack Walsh and tennis and basketball courts, also in very rough shape. We did have design funding approved last year, and we want to do the construction this summer. We have the VFW fields, dugouts, and protective fencing. We had sought an appropriation a couple of years ago for the baseball field. This will be for the softball field. Because of turnover in the rec department and COVID, the initial baseball fields weren't done. So DPW took over. They're going to do them all at once. And lastly, we have playground improvements for Forge and Ed's Beach. These are actually big sunshades that will go over the playground to provide sun protection, and they'll be stored at the DPW in the off season. Might stop there for a second, see if we have any questions. Give myself a break.
Any questions? Just raise your hand so we can see. Anita?
Anita's okay. No.
Yep.
Yeah, thanks for going through this list. It's really helpful. And I guess I have a question about like the wide area mower and all the different vehicles. And I know that we always look for electric options. And I didn't know if that was something that was discussed in capital. So not just vehicles, but also thinking about, you know, some of the equipment we use too.
It was discussed on all the vehicles. We always have that discussion. With the technology is not there for the trucks that we need right now. And Jeff, you out there? Can you talk to the mower real quick?
Absolutely. Yep. So I certainly entertained and looked at electric options for the lawnmower. However, I think that, you know, we're still in that first generation of technology. And it basically went during the height of the summer, that wide area mower is cutting for 8 hours a day. The electric models, I would have to stop and bring it back to the garage and recharge it every 2.5 hours. So it just doesn't make a lot of sense for us at this time. Maybe when they get a little better with that technology, a few generations down the road, we can entertain that. I might have a mutiny on my hand if I tell them they have to stop and charge it every couple hours.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. Okay, I've rushed enough. I can keep going here. On to the enterprise. So we have $2 million here earmarked for the Boston Road reconstruction project for the water main. It's $1.8 million with basically a 10% contingency. Here we have a utility truck for the water department, which is scheduled replacement. And we have the express van, which the van will be electric. Next up, we have the pilot study for the PFAS treatment. I'm gonna look at my notes on this one. So basically, in the water plan is they need to build 2 centralized treatment plants next to the Forge Village and Nutting Road treatment plants. The pilot study is to determine what level of treatment we're going to need to help in the design of those treatment plants. So after the study, the water enterprise will likely be requesting $1 million per facility for design, then $8 million per facility for construction. And the timing of this all depends on the how quickly they see new regulations from the EPA. So this is a start of a big project here.
Can I ask a question about that, Dan, before you move on?
Of course.
So, will any of, I mean, we're part of the PFAS litigation now. Do we know if any of these expenses at some point down the line, even if it's years from now, will be reimbursable?
So I think that's a discussion that we have to have, but I would think that the money we receive from settlement would go back to the water enterprise to help offset the costs we have to mitigate the PFAS treatment. But I think that's more of a board decision in the future too, but yes.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right. After PFAS, we have the Francis Hill Water Storage Tank rehabilitation. It's basically the sandblast and rehabilitate the tank. This is part of the water master plan going back to 2016. And lastly, they're currently working on the Depot Street wells at this point. They need a supplemental for some further action that needs to take place. So they're requesting, the original project was for 300,000. They're requesting 80,000 more to complete that project. On the stormwater, we have 165,000 for the design of the culvert at 192 Acton Road. This was identified in the culvert assessment survey as a high priority. So this was added to the plan. And then we're requesting 1.5 million that we're looking to bond and repay using stormwater enterprise funds for the Blue Brook culvert, which is on Groton Road, and the Pond Brook culvert, which is on Old Lowell Road. We'll most likely be doing the construction in the spring if this is approved. Then we're into the bonds here. We have the placeholder for the 51 Main Street of 12,010,000. Below that, we just have a placeholder for the Cameron Senior Center HVAC renovation. We're not ready to speak that yet tonight, but we do have a placeholder in here and in the warrant. We have the Blanchard Middle School MSBA roof for just over 6.4 million. We did receive word that we will be receiving the maximum contribution from the MSBA of 48.05%, which equates to 3,087,000. So we'll only bond the difference between the 6.4 and the 3.1 million when the project's done. And then we received a quote for the tower truck for the fire department. The truck is a 2002 that's being replaced. The quote's good for 90 days. They've been raising rates every 90 days at this point. So if this passes town meeting, we'll probably have to have the contract approved either immediately after the first meeting after town meeting in late March. And lastly, we have other funds. Of course, we have the pavement management program that we use Chapter 90 funds and mitigation funds to repair the roads. The DPW fixed over 8 miles of roads last year, 8.5 actually, in FY22. And they're currently doing an update on the road conditions. And once that's done, they'll have a more refined list of roads that they can share with us if they plan to fix next year. And lastly, I mentioned this before, the WA treatment plant repairs for 130,000 that were funded through ARPA. So there's just a couple of items that weren't funded at this point. We weren't ready to go on those. One of them is the Blanchard Middle School rooftop ventilation units. The project's not going to take place until the end of the summer on FY24, so this can wait till next town meeting. We had the Plain Road Phase 2 pedestrian improvements, but the design's not ready at this time, so we decided to hold off on funding this. And of course, the library had placeholders for heat pump replacements and elevator controls. Hopefully we don't have to fix any part of the building as we're waiting to do the expansion. It's just in case a heat pump goes in the meantime, but we didn't recommend funding this. So that is the capital plan so far.
Thanks, Dan. Heather?
So I've been on this committee for a lot of years, and one of the things that we are constantly told is that we don't need to worry about how it's funded. Our job is just to prioritize. So one of the things I just wanted to communicate to everybody is it's a very big list of projects this year. I think our guidelines from the select board that we review says to spend at least 1.5 million of free cash on this. Dan, what is it? It's like over 4 million this year?
Yeah, it's 2.7 million in free cash plus $1 million free cash for 51 Main. Plus we're using the sale of real estate funds of 430,000 or some odd to fund it. So about 4.1 in total in available funds.
So I think that we just need to be careful about how much free cash we use and the ending balances of free cash. I know Dana said it's above what we need to be adequately in good standing or whatever that is. But I do have a little concern that it's a lot of free cash being used this time.
Okay, thanks, Heather. Anything else on capital? Any other questions? Beth?
I'm just wondering if we'll get any further discussion about the Main Street building, or what are we calling it? The building that will replace the old fire station next to town hall. Is there any, like, that has to pass town meeting and the ballot, correct? So I'm just wondering if there's going to be any further discussion, because it did not pass the ballot last time. So I'm wondering, like, what are we going to do? What's the plan to see this project go forward, or are we reviewing the project since it didn't pass?
Andrew, do you want to chime in?
Sure. So yeah, Beth, we are planning to go forward with it again at town meeting. We are working on presentations to the public. It'll be brought back, obviously discussed at the select board again. All of that is in the works right now, and hopefully will be, I guess, available. We're already in February, so sometime within the next couple of weeks, is that right? Tom Clay has been helping out, and sometime within the next couple of weeks, right, Tom?
Yes, we'll have a number of different sort of public information video announcements people will be able to look at, sort of what is the project and how is it constructed, what's the need that we're trying to address, how it's going to impact the voters. So there will be a public communication process here. And Beth, to your point, I know that you're following the same thing, but it wasn't voted down exactly. It was sort of voted to postpone because it was supposed to be a more appropriate time at this next meeting. So there is some preparation for it, and we'll get all this information to you and hope that you can, based on your own assessment of it, decide how you want to forward it to your networks. But it's a complicated issue because I think it's not obvious to someone who hasn't been involved in this why we need something like this. So we do want to make sure we get the education out there and make sure people understand that a lot of the sort of temporary measures we put in place over time are just not sustainable and appropriate for town services and safety. So we'll get that word out.
So the project isn't being reviewed. It'll be like the same proposal that we saw before.
It's right now it's the same proposal because the needs are the same and the requirements are the same. That we don't have a different IT department need. We don't have a different need for our veterans to have better handicapped accessibility to get to the service location. So the needs are the same and the recommendations the same.
Okay.
So just one thing that I'll add to that, Beth, and the rest of Finance Committee, in 2 weeks, our meeting on February 16th, and then again on March 2nd, we're going to be discussing and taking positions on the warrant article. So that's when that'll come up to us. So we'll obviously have something else in our packet, some additional information.
Okay,
Heather?
great.
I was just curious if part of that, going forward, if anyone has talked with the school committee. I did not watch their meeting, but I know they had an update, and then they had mentioned that there would possibly be a need for additional monies to retrofit schools and deal with their admin. So I'm just wondering if there's any talk of joining forces on that.
I actually hadn't seen that meeting, Heather, so I didn't know that was discussed at that meeting. So so I'm not sure what they're looking for, either what they're looking for or whether they're looking. I mean, last actually I heard they were considering incorporating their admin perhaps into one of the schools. So we can certainly reach out and talk to them, but not something that I'm aware of right now.
Okay, thanks. Anything else on capital?
Oh, Emily Teller does have a question. Her hands up.
Okay, go ahead.
There, Emily?
Yep, I'm here. Thanks. Actually, I have three. The first easy question is, does the 192 Acton Road project, culvert project, have anything to do with the proximity of the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail? I know 192 must be pretty far toward Chelmsford.
It's actually right on the line, Emily.
That's not the Greenwood project.
I don't think it's a Greenwood project. It's on 27 right by the Chelmsford line.
So it must impact the rail trail unless it's on the other side of the street.
Heather, do you have something on this, or?
I don't think it impacts the rail trail. I tried to find 192, Emily, because I'm on the same neck of the woods, and I don't even see how you get to 192 based on the numbering. But I did ask that at our capital meeting, and it won't impact the rail trail. I think it might be a culvert right before the Greenwood driveway, but I'm not 100%.
You know what?
Like I
I'll
said,
get
if I
I'll
find
get in
them.
touch with Steve. I'll email Steve and find out about that. My second comment is, as you know, what I think we're now calling the Town Hall Annex Building at 51 Main Street has an office space dedicated to a sustainability director. Just put that in and you can think about that yourselves. The third thing is I live in Parker Village on Texas Road, right across from the Jack Walsh Field. And when we moved here 40 years ago, my kids used to go to a summer program there that was fabulous. The tennis courts were in good shape. The basketball courts were in good shape. So I'm happy to see that $400,000 in the budget, semicolon, however, comma, I think far more people in Westford will be impacted by funding a sustainability director 100% than that recreational resource. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Emily. Hey,
Christina,
Dan?
just to that last comment, we're proposing using CPA funds for that, which could not be used to fund a sustainability coordinator. So
Thanks for that clarification, Dan. Okay, anything else on capital before we move on to revenue? I am not seeing anything. Okay. Oh, wait, Beth.
I just wanted to thank the Capital Committee for all your work. And I know there's so much that you go through to make these recommendations, and just thank you for your time and effort.
Thanks. Okay, Dan, revenue.
yeah, I'm up again. Share my screen.
This is Dan's favorite part of the budget meetings.
It's great. I love all the attention for the most part. So I've given this presentation in the past. So I'm going to go over the highlights of this. So you don't have to hear me drone on for 26 pages. This will be posted online. So feel free to look and reach out with any questions you may have. So let's see. These are the different type of revenues that we have. They're included in this presentation. They're the property taxes, local revenue, state aid, free cash, enterprise revenue, and other available funds. That I give a good history here. Moving down, I just have a larger detailed history if you care to peruse that. Let's see, for property tax, property taxes account for over 76% of our general fund revenue, and the increase has the percentage has increased over the years as state aid hasn't kept up at the same rate. So, and I say this every year, the calculation for the levy limit under Prop 2.5 is we take the previous year's levy limit, we add 2.5% increase to the entire base. It's not on individual tax bills. And then we add any new additional growth, any new houses, any major renovations and whatnot on top of that. And then we have our debt exclusions that we have budgeted to offset the excluded debt. And that gives us our total tax levy for the year. And I have a whole sheet here that kind of details each of the local revenues, which I will not read to you. We're going to start with motor vehicle excise, which is our largest source of local revenue. It makes up over half of it. That you'll be seeing bills in the mail soon. They go out every February. We have an estimated total of just under 3.9 million for FY24. That's up slightly from the amount collected in FY22. And with all the bills that were issued, it seems to be right on target for what we should collect this year. Local options, I spoke a little bit about this earlier. This was the revenue that was most impacted by COVID during the pandemic, and we've seen it rebound greatly here. So the hotel excise is just under by a few $1,000s where we were in FY20 prior to the pandemic, which is why we're comfortable raising that projection in local revenue, the extra 80,000. It's not updated here, but I will update this for the website. And then the meals tax is already exceeding what we are collecting prior to the pandemic, partly due to inflation because food prices have increased. But we're still comfortable with our projection we had prior to receiving any new information. See here, We have penalties and interest up next. You can see here we've almost collected our full amount for FY23 of 195,000. That's because we've had 8 tax title payoffs, which is an unusually higher number. So that's why you're not seeing that reflected in the estimate for FY24, because we don't count on that happening again. Payment in lieu of taxes. This is something that Christine bills out each year. We usually see receipts in June. Our largest payment comes from MIT. So it should be around 75,000 for this year. So fees, we have quite the history here. I know it's probably small on your screen, but just overall, we've collected 138,000 halfway through this year. We have a projection of 300,000, so we don't think we're going to hit that target. Partly because the market for recyclables has changed. The market for basically cardboard and mixed paper just fell out, and now we're paying a fee each month for processing those materials. So with that being said, we're looking to lower this 3,075 to 280 for next year. If you have questions as I'm going, please feel free to interrupt as well. All right, next up, we have our departmental revenue for the cemeteries. Basically, it's 60% of the purchase price. I'm sorry, this is for the grave openings for this portion, and the other parts go into sustainable funds for the cemetery to use. So far this year, we have 21.4 that's been collected halfway through the year. The number is always between 27 and 44,000, so 30,000 is a little bit of a conservative estimate, just so we don't come up short. And other departmental revenue, basically we have $1,000 we collect on a lease for the property down by the community gardens, and we rented the fire truck for the filming of Salem's Lot 2, so we did get some money in for that. So anybody sees the movie, our truck's in there. So licenses and permits have been outstanding year to date. As I said before, we do have 3 developments going on, which are building 25 additional units. They're Spalding Hill Estates, Diane Lane, and Amarique Way. So building permits are not consistent from year to year. It absolutely depends on what developments we have happening. So I think our projection for 960 next year is good. Just in case we have a drop off, then we're in a deficit the following year. That's the case. Special assessments, it's basically for any betterments that are built, and we just plug in a number that's on our schedule to be collected. Sometimes people pay them off early and we get that revenue in advance. Fines are the next portion here. Motor vehicle infractions is the largest segment of this. We've collected 34,000 to date against a $33,000 budget. Let's stop there. Heather?
I'm just curious on that motor vehicle infractions. It was highest ever in FY21 when everyone was locked down.
Well, it was 52,000 FY21. Back in 15 and 16, we had 72 and 62,000.
So is it just lower in these other periods because people are better, or is it because of our police being too pulled in other directions?
It's sometimes because I did ask the chief about this. It's because we have vacancies in the police department sometimes, particularly in the traffic control. This year we have 2 traffic control officers that are out there responding to officer initiated stops. So when we're short staffed, we're usually responding to incidents. When we're fully staffed or close to fully staffed, we're actively patrolling and stopping vehicles. So that's a major reason why the revenue's up this year. All right. Investment income. This is the other piece that we have that is tracking very well. So we've raised 106,000 through the first 6 months. We had a budget of 47,000 based on the actuals from last year. So as the feds raised rates 7 times throughout 2022, the value of our investments have gone up. So Christine's been very active seeking out new rates and new ways to safely invest our operating funding. And so money markets and CDs are ranging between 2.23 and 4.5%, whereas last year they were between 0.1 and 1%. So this is a great source of revenue for us, and we don't see that going down anytime soon.
Hey, Dan, and I assume that that investment income is actual money. This isn't a value of our portfolio, is it?
That's correct. This is the money that we're actually bringing in. This isn't like the OPEB money or anything like that. This is our operating cash that we're seeing returns on investment on a monthly basis. And so Christine's actually invested some money in 7-day CDs, which are getting 4% returned back to us. So it's money we're realizing the gains immediately for the most part.
Okay, thanks.
Christine, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but we're good. Okay, she agrees. So I need is a thumbs up. Miscellaneous recurring revenue. So this will be the last time I talk about this because I'm going to delete it from the revenue presentation next year. This is the state and local government money for the 3 schools that we're paying off this year. So we're going to see a large drop off in local revenue just because the money from the MSBA that they gave us is being expended and we don't have to worry about paying for the schools anymore. So I have a graph that shows sort of that breaks this out, but those schools are paid for, which is fantastic. And below here, we have our miscellaneous recurring revenue, which we do budget for. Medicaid receipts is money from the schools that they apply for treating student needs. We always are very cautious with this, and because the needs vary from year to year. And that's the guidance from the DOR. We participate in a program for Medicaid with our ambulance enterprise, where we apply for funds based on how many rides we give to Medicare supplemented patients, and we bring in typically 40 or 50,000 per year on that. We have the funding for our Neshoba Tech SRO, and then new this year we have the opioid settlement proceeds, which I put in here. So we have an article for town meeting which is going to appropriate these funds, but the money that we got in, we can't put them in a fund. They do need to go to town meeting to be appropriated because the state law doesn't allow us to. So we were going to treat this like perchlorate, where we appropriate from free cash the exact amount that we got, put it into a special account, and that will be used for only the allowed opioid settlement uses that we have. But we have an article on the town meeting warrant that we'll discuss that for the length. So that's all the recurring revenue. And then down below, we have the miscellaneous non-recurring revenue, which we cannot use to balance the budget. So, you know, the most revenue we've received the past few years is just with tax title. And here's a summary page of all local revenue. Here's that graph I talked about, which is showing the state and local government securities for the 3 schools going away. And taking that in consideration, local revenue has been fairly steady. We did see a drop during COVID. State aid, we just talked about that too. I do have descriptions on all the different programs here, which I will not read to you, but they'll be online. And so basically with state aid, I had some very, conservative figures that I feel like. So I budgeted $30 per student, which resulted in about $135,000 increase for state aid. Last year, we did receive $60 per student, but we do have a new governor coming in. I'm not sure exactly what's going to happen. So, we see those in different numbers. For unrestricted aid, I put in at 2.5%, and for all the other revenues, I put a 1% increase. And for the state assessments, which they back out of the state aid each month, I put a 2.5% increase. So we have to know these numbers by March 1st. The governor did say at the MMA meeting a couple weeks ago that she wants to get those out earlier, which would be fantastic to give us a little more time to plan. But I don't think we can count on that until we actually see it. But first thing I do is look at my phone every morning, see if we got that email. We'll send that out to all of you once we do. And here's just a graph showing the different state aid here. The blue is the general state aid that, that's how much it's increased over the past 9 years or so. Let's see, enterprise funds. Here's the revenue that we have for the 4 funds going back to FY15. And then Dennis had been asked about the subsidies. Dennis, I got your chart right here showing all the subsidies going back to from FY15 to FY24 that we keep in here. So if you're ever interested in seeing what the subsidies are in the history, they're right here.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. And of course, I have write-ups on how enterprises are doing here. For rec, we are not planning on seeking a supplemental for next year because we lowered the revenue assumption for that, and they're applying some retained earnings there. So we're trying to tighten that up. And ambulance enterprise been tracking well. We're looking at raising over $1 million this year in revenue, which is great. And of course, stormwater enterprise, we have countless capital projects we need to keep moving on, but we're keeping that the subsidy steady at $600,000 per year, as was the recommendation when we first started the enterprise. All right, and then we have a list of other available funds out there, you know, that we're planning to use to offset the budget or to pay for capital. The overlay we applied $100,000 this year. We're planning to do that again this year. The Board of Assessors have already released that. For capital, we have this sale of real estate fund, which was from the sale of 63 Main Street. We thought we could apply this to the town hall parking lot as part of the funding for that article. So you'll see that in the motions when you look at that. And of course, we always have this $3,000 offset to pay for the custodial services for the Council on Aging fitness room. Community preservation funds, I like to put the whole history here so we can see the great return on investment we've gotten here. Since 2003, we've raised $30.5 million locally, and we've received $14.7 million as a state match. So it's really had a great return on investment, over 40%. We did get $934,000 this year from the state. They had an additional round of funding, which gave us almost $200,000 more, which is fantastic. And of course, free cash applied to balance the budget. We had a history before where we were using free cash to help offset the costs in the budget. And FY15, we really tightened that up and tried to make that not our practice moving forward. We've had a couple incidents where we did have to apply some funds at October special town meeting during COVID, and one other year when our new growth didn't come in so great. But right now we're projecting not to use any free cash to balance this budget. And here's the end page, just giving a nice little summary here. And I'll stop talking.
Thanks, Dan. Anyone have questions on revenue? Dennis?
Okay, so I just have a couple of questions. I want to, Dan, I just want to make sure I understand. I'm always trying to figure out new growth, so I get it straight. So when you say new growth, is that money that you can retain here without having to turn into the Department of Revenue and have it come back? Is that and you're allowed to do that for 1 year, or have I got that wrong?
So new growth is added to the tax base each year. It's certified by the Department of Revenue. We have to give them a list with the description of everything that's considered new growth, and it's audited by them and then approved. But yeah, that is becomes part of the tax base moving forward.
So that you get to keep that. You don't have to share it with them, right?
No, they don't take any of that. It's local property taxes that we retain.
Okay. And the other question I have is, I noticed on the alcohol licenses, the fees on the alcohol license, do they have to renew those licenses every year? Or is that how that works?
Every year, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Heather?
I have a question on the stormwater enterprise, and I'm just curious. It doesn't seem like there's a board other than the select board that reviews that. And I'm just wondering if that's part of the, is that just part of an agenda item that yearly it gets looked at to see whether the rates need to be raised? For example, you know, we have the water enterprise being looked at by the commissioners, the cemetery has it, there's a board of assessors. I'm just wondering when we go through there, that's the one area that I'm just wondering if there's a regular scrutiny of.
Dan or Andrea?
So Heather, when we set the rates in 2020, and as the way they were set is that we would review them in the third year. And this is the third year, I think it'll be in the fall actually, because I believe that's when we passed it and signed it. So come fall 2023, we will be reviewing them. I also know that for anybody who challenges what they get assessed, there is an appeal process, and there is a board that considers it. quite frankly, I forget who's on the board off the top of my head, but but John Cunningham is raising his hand, so he maybe can answer that question for you. But there is an appeal process for folks to go through to challenge any assessment that they might receive. And as I said, the board, it'll be 3 years in October, so we will be looking at it.
Okay, I think that's what I was just worried about. You know, with the water, we have a big surprise coming and have to work on that. I just want to make sure that same kind of thing.
Sure.
Okay, thanks. Anybody else have anything?
We have a question from Emily as well. Emily Teller.
Okay.
Emily, you there?
I really appreciate your patience, ladies and gentlemen. I know very little about the financial process of Westford, but from the last chart that Dan showed with the incredible decrease in the free cash usage that we have been moving toward and hoping to balance the budget without any use of free cash. Here's my question of the evening. Is it possible to fund the sustainability director with free cash? It's such a teeny percent of the budget. And I know that the problem is this is a position that once funded will be continually funded in, going forward. But I'm just looking at straws and hoping that you guys will think creatively too. So that's my question.
So I'll
you.
chime in. I'll chime in on that one, Emily. It's generally not a good idea to use free cash for an operating expense that's going to be perpetual. So I don't think I would personally be in favor of doing that. I appreciate you thinking of all the different ways we can fund this, but that would be my position on using free cash for that, for a position like that, for an ongoing position.
Even if that position begins to generate their own funds once it's full?
I think for me, I think there would have to be a plan put in place, and if I could really see that, maybe, but there would have to be a little more to that.
Okay.
Beth?
I was just gonna say that the ARPA funding is also, we've kind of treated that also as kind of one-time funding, although I think it was over 3 years. But we've had a similar discussion, I believe, about the ARPA funding as well, which has been used to fund several positions at the town, and also is funding full-day kindergarten in the schools. Well, that was ESSER funds, I believe, which is also similar to ARPA, but separate, but all COVID-related funding from the federal government. So I think we're going to have similar discussions about those positions that were funded with ARPA money in the future.
True. Very true. Anyone else have anything? I had one comment on the revenue, and in particular the enterprise. For the enterprise, there's a line that has the general fund subsidy. I forget what exactly it's labeled as, but you can see the history of it. And I think I may have said this in one of our previous meetings, but for the rec enterprise, the value of that number this coming year is much higher than it has been previously. And I'm just a little concerned about that. And secondly, I'm thinking that I don't know if there's any sort of policy or guideline or anything around what that number could be. I think that kind of goes into the select board realm as far as a policy or a guideline, but I'd just like to throw out that maybe there needs to be some sort of discussion on what that number can and should be. So go ahead, Dan.
So I did work with Michelle Collette on drafting this budget. We did have directive to make the revenue assumption more reasonable, and with the $263,000 subsidy, we were able to fit this within the 2.48% increase for the town side. Part of the reason that went up so much is that when we calculated the direct and indirect costs, we had quite the swing from the previous year because people were laid off or not laid off. They were, they weren't working during COVID as we shut the program down. And so we had quite the swing when they came back to work, increase in benefits and whatnot. So I will say that the actual direct and indirect cost for FY24 is $241,000, which is about, within $30,000 of the subsidy amount. So if we did, let's say hypothetically, we didn't fund a recreational program, we're still on the hook for those costs for next year because of the health insurance trust and the Middlesex retirement assessment. Those are set amounts. And then the other portions offsetting parts of salaries for staff and insurance and whatnot, which most of those would not be changed just because the recreation enterprise went away. So if we're in the ballpark of where our direct and indirect costs are, I think it's still a program that's, really bringing in the revenue to cover their costs for the operating at least. But, if it just went away, we wouldn't see really a budget savings at all in the short term.
Okay.
So, we're trying to be cautious to build up the retained earnings to make sure that they are sustainable in the future as well.
Mm-hmm. Yep, exactly. Okay, thanks, Dan. Anything else on revenue? Okay, so I think that we're gonna go on to approve meeting minutes. So unless the select board has anything else, if you would like to adjourn, Andrea.
I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
In a second,
Second.
and all those in favor? Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Our meeting minutes from January 26th. Did everyone have a chance to take a look at those?
I did.
And any comments or changes?
I
And if
move to
not-
approve.
Well, before you do that, there's just some punctuation in a comma somewhere in the beginning, and I didn't write it down, but I meant to zing an email over to you, Dan. It's really minor, but there's like a space and then a comma or something. Super minor.
I can find that for you and we can approve as amended.
Yeah, that's what I figure. It might not even need to be mentioned.
I see it right here. I got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so Dennis, do we have a motion to approve as amended?
We do. So
All right,
moved.
in a second.
Second.
Okay, so all those in favor, Hari? Okay, I see you raising your hand. Shelby,
Aye.
Beth,
Aye.
Jake,
Aye.
Heather,
Aye.
Ingrid,
Aye.
Dennis,
Aye.
and I'm an aye. So that passes. I'm going to skip over the boards and committees unless anyone has anything in particular, if anything new has come up. Any old business we need to discuss? Not seeing anything. Okay, so our next meeting actually looks like it's on February 14th at the select board. So is that right? We're not meeting next week, correct, Dan?
We have a week off. It's been 4
We have a
weeks in
week
a
off.
row, so we'll take a week off. Yeah,
Okay. Woohoo. And then we've got two that week, though. We've got Tuesday and Thursday in 2 weeks.
that's correct. And the select board is in person at the town hall, but people can still join. We're doing a hybrid meeting, so you can still join remotely.
Okay, all right, good to know. Ingrid?
Sorry, I should know this, but what is the 14th meeting? The topic?
That is to speak with the water commissioners.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yep, and then I believe they're also going to be discussing pay as you throw. So that might also interest people. We're not officially invited to that portion, but I think it definitely could be interesting because it could have budget impacts.
Okay.
Dennis?
Yes, my question is, are we going to go back to live meetings at some point? And what's the plan on that?
So at least for the rest of this year, I think those end at the end of March. Is that right, Dan?
That's right.
Ends at
Yeah.
the end of March. So unless something gets extended, we may be forced into a live meetings. I actually prefer this, but if other people want to go back to live meetings, it's gonna be difficult for me, obviously, until September, because I'm not in Massachusetts. But after that, we can discuss it. Anyone else have any strong feelings one way or another? Okay.
I was just wondering if we have any, like, are we getting more participation from people from the town? I feel like during COVID, we had more participation, but I haven't seen as much this budget season. So I'm just wondering if there's an advantage to accessibility for people in town as well to having virtual meetings.
Yeah, I haven't noticed a lot more participants, but I haven't watched it super close. So I don't know if you know, Dan, if we've had more participation or not.
This meeting had quite a few additional participants that we would add a full select board room if that was the case. This was in person.
Okay. That's interesting. All right, we can discuss it as it moves forward. If nobody has anything else, can I get a motion to adjourn?
So move.
In a second?
Second.
Okay. Thanks, everyone. All right, see you in a couple weeks.
Good night.
Bye.